Welcome to the live stream, the first ever we've done on a Sunday night. Also, we're doing this with like completely different equipment than normal because we are testing equipment for the live stream that we are going to be doing live from LA with K Mike EM, the world's first publicly traded person, on Thursday. So we are testing a non-pandemic version of live stream equipment. So if everything breaks, it's not my fault. Welcome, everyone. We have no idea how many people are going to show up. Everybody claimed that there was going to be, that this was a better time. So Saturday worked really great for the past year and a half. The past 64 weeks, we've been doing Saturday at 5 p.m. Slowly, it turns out that in a lot of places in the world, as things reopen, people go and do things on a Saturday night. I heard this is true. I haven't lived it in my own life in many years, but so we've moved to Sunday because what else are you going to do than watch me eat a donut and talk about economics and finance? So yes, Emily, that is how I feel. Activities. Hi, Stephanie. I don't know if I've seen you on a live stream very often. Welcome. I'm glad you like the intro screen. This is the donut for today, which I'm actually really excited about. It is a strawberry shortcake old-fashioned vegan donut. So I'm pretty stoked about it. I will say it has the most strong smell I have had on any of these. I like how the lighting is getting brighter and brighter as we go on. So we went from me looking like I was in a cozy cave to now like what is happening. But I have so much to cover because I essentially made this be like how to travel cheap, but also points and miles. And we've done a little bit of talking about points and miles on the live stream before. I've done an episode on this before, probably a couple episodes on this on Oh My Dollar, but I linked to them down below. And I linked to a ton of resources in the description for this live stream. So almost anything I mention should be linked down below. If not, it should be easily Googleable. I will say that like this is pretty US centric, and that is just because our credit system is very US centric. Most of these credit cards are available predominantly to people that are interacting with the US credit system. That doesn't mean that there aren't some resources for people that live in other rich countries that do have access to credit cards. There are just less because the United States is a country that runs on credit. And we have a lot of opportunities to do what is called travel hacking. But that doesn't mean that the cheap flight things that I talk about will not be useful to people that live outside the US. And I did link some resources for Canadians, Australians, and UK folks to blogs that actually do know more about travel hacking in those countries and doing kind of the credit card sign-up bonus system. But also, for the Europeans, it's the middle of the night on Sunday night there. So I have a suspicion that the few late-night Europeans we usually get on Saturday night are going to be even less likely to show up now that we moved on the Sunday times. So Stephanie says, I feel like I can smell that through the screen. Yeah, Erin's running the live stream from a good 6 feet away and can smell it. So it wouldn't surprise me if it could come through the screen. I am coming through one of those wake alarms. We were futzing with equipment, and I was futzing with award charts before this. So I guess the lighting wasn't as worked out. For people from the forums who participated in the Great Espresso Cup debate, we now have an espresso cup that's like a proper size and not as actually a teacup. We have several, thanks to my parents who just had a bunch of extras and were going to have them at a rummage sale, and we got first crack at them. So now we own more espresso cups than two people could possibly need, having gone from having one not espresso cup that we were using back and forth. So it's very exciting, but one of the plates has now turned into a donut plate. So, yeah. Should we just dive in? How are people doing tonight? I guess I didn't ask how you're doing yet. I just dove into all of our technical things. How are folks doing? Did we lived through the week? We made it here to Sunday night to talk about travel. All plates are donut plates on a long enough time frame. I guess that's true. I will also say that, like, I really struggled to find good plates that matched the aesthetic of the live streams to put the donuts on. And I really kind of had narrowed in on one, but I didn't think it was the best for all donuts, depending on the shape of the donuts. But Joe says, this topic is irrelevant to me, but apparently Monday mornings are easier for me. It's not totally irrelevant for you. I mean, if you're not planning to travel, then it is irrelevant for you. But not all travel is international, and there are Australian resources for travel hacking. And as you know, Qantas miles are free-flowing in Australia. So some of these things do apply to Qantas if you are looking to fly domestically in Australia. But I think it's hilarious that Monday mornings are easier for you, but I'm glad to hear it because I was a little worried moving the live stream to Sundays. I was like, well, we've always been screwing over the Europeans, but at least it was like Sunday morning for Australians. But I don't know. Maybe, yeah. Emily says, this topic is relevant to me, and I'm currently lying with an ice pack shoved into my shirt. LA was a mistake. Well, good thing that you bought a condo in Portland, because I will tell you, it is currently pouring rain here. So soon you will get the benefits of this weather, although it was 94 Fahrenheit, like 34 Celsius, like a week ago. So, you know, it's great one way or the other. I am really hoping that LA is not miserable when we come down on Wednesday. So we'll see, because I'm actually getting on a plane. This topic is relevant to me because I am flying to LA for $6 each way on points. So highly relevant this week. So it says 90 degrees the whole time we're there, but there's so many microclimates in LA, and we're staying right next to the coast. So I'm hoping that, like, it won't be quite as hot. Oh yes, Emily had the same thought as me. One of the friends that is coming to hang out, I was like, oh, if you're like not, you know, we're fully vaccinated, but if you're not comfortable coming to our hotel, like we can go to the beach. We're really close to the beach. And she was like, I'm a wimp. I'm from LA and it's too cold in Santa Monica in the evening. So I was like, oh, okay. My house is just poorly insulated. Well, okay, there's so much to cover with this travel and mile and points. And I actually saw a couple people on Twitter that aren't like normally people that attend live streams 2 days ago that were like totally baffled about how like average income people in the US possibly get free flights and like how you get into the travel hacking game. And, but I have long dealt with people being very confused about how I, on my income, prioritize travel, how I find cheap flights. And, you know, when I bring up some of the things that I've done with points and miles, I think a lot of people don't feel like it's applicable to them, and it might not be, but I want to give you the ways that you can participate in it if you're interested. And I also want to give you some of the downsides of doing this because it really is a hobby. I think a lot of people see the kind of, you know, travel hacking as it is called, or like the points and miles game that I do. And they constantly are just asking me like, what is the best credit card to sign up for? Like, they're like, oh, I want to get free flights. What credit card should I sign up for? And it's not quite that simple, unfortunately. It's not just sign up for a card, you're done, you get free flights now. It is more of a strategizing hobby. It's good for people who like maps, spreadsheets, and tracking their expenses. So works out great for me, but it might not be the hobby for you. And it also might not be the hobby for you if you are someone who has not previously focused on their credit score and doesn't have a very good credit score, or if you're someone that knows that they are not good at handling credit. So You know, if you're one of those people that sees credit cards as free money and has trouble repaying it, can't come up with systems to make sure that you pay it off on time every single month, then it might not be the hobby for you. It just might not be a good meshing for your personality. But I want to let you know what the options are, how to evaluate, how to figure out what card to get, how to actually hit those minimum spends, all of those things. So here are the basics of how to cheap travel. So the first thing to know is that you should have a more specific idea in mind than I would like to do cheap travel if you want to play the points and miles game. But if you're someone who is willing to travel anywhere, you're just kind of vaguely interested in making sure that you can travel as much as possible, especially internationally. And even better, if you're someone that lives relatively close to a major hub airport, so a place like LA, Seattle, SFO, New York, Chicago, DC, all of those international airports that are hubs, Dallas, Houston, those are all really great opportunities to actually avoiding the entire points and miles game. The way to get into cheap travel, if you are looking for flights and you're willing to go anywhere, is to start keeping an eye on fare deals. And there's a couple different websites that you can use to keep an eye out for fare deals. The first thing is get to know what your closest airport hubs are. For example, I'm at Portland International Airport, PDX. It's like a 25-minute light rail ride door to door from my house. It's great. But PDX Airport, while it is an international airport and does have some international flights, it has less international flights than San Francisco International Airport, LAX International Airport, and Seattle International Airport. Because I am located in Portland, but I always have a little bit of points and miles in my balance for my local regional cheap carrier. So here, Alaska is the airline that I use to get to those other airlines on the West Coast. I have set up alerts for fare deals for all of those airports. So the places that I follow fare deals are Scott's Cheap Flights. This is a very common one. You can get a limited number of fare alerts for a limited number of airports for free for Scott's Cheap Flights. I think it's worth it to subscribe. It's just an email newsletter. It's not spammy. They don't make any money off the actual flights that they sell. There's no like referral deals from it. They just send out alerts for cheap and mistake fares. And you can sign up for like a premium subscription, which is like $50 a year. I had the free subscription for many, many years prior to paying for the annual subscription. I actually finally did the annual subscription for, I think I got it on a deal for like $20. And I get a lot more flight deals now. And the reason I signed up for it was because I got a $340 round trip flight to Denmark from the West Coast US. And I went, you've saved me enough money that I am willing to pay $29 to support getting more fare deals. And I signed up this year because right now what is happening is airlines are just desperate to get passengers on board. And there is a lot of flight fare competition happening right now as things start to reopen. And you can start booking flights through usually about a year in advance. So you can be booking flights right now into spring of 2022. So if you're someone who's not yet comfortable international traveling due to restrictions in your country, the country you want to go to, your own vaccination status, whatever it might be. If you're not yet comfortable doing it for COVID reasons, you can set up fare alerts and only be looking for things that the booking is available next spring. So I have fare alerts for all of those because I know that if I can get a incredibly bottom basement cheap flight to international destinations out of SFO, then I can take a connecting flight that I get on points, very few points. It's usually about 5,000 Alaska points and $6 to fly down to SFO. And that ends up making a lot of sense if I find a fair deal. For example, $300 round trip to Europe, $600 round trip to Kenya, which is one that I just booked for February of next year. And so I think that is like important to understand. If you are looking for a particular destination that is very expensive and you're willing to spend more time in transit, then you can start looking even wider than that. One of the advantages of being located in North America is because it is such a large continent with so many carriers, you can take connecting flights. For example, I am willing to take connecting flights to DC, the other side of the country, New York City, Dallas, that I can find on fair deals in order to get to very cheap international flights. I'm also one of those people that does not mind taking long flights. I don't mind being in airports. Eventually, I start to wear down on it. I did a trip to Australia like in late 2019 where I think I spent 60 hours in the air over the course of like 7 days, and that was a little excessive. But you know, if you're traveling with kids, if you have trouble with airplanes, if they aren't comfortable for you, then another thing that you can look into, which is something that people in that don't live near big cities end up having to do a lot of the time, is actually driving or taking ground transport in order to get to the actual airport. And for a bigger destination, because the cost in gasoline, the cost in train tickets is so much less than you would pay flying out of, for example, Boise, Idaho, or, you know, Missoula, Montana, compared to driving to Seattle or Chicago and flying out of an international port. You do have to factor in, if you do that, if you need to do an overnight, though. So that is one of the things that I recommend. So ways to check other than being subscribed to Scott's Cheap Flights. There is a forum called Flyer Talk. I think it's a very advanced forum. If you aren't super into like really looking for things called mistake fares, which is when airlines actually make a mistake, and sometimes they honor the fares, sometimes they don't, but sometimes you can get fares for like $10 for a, you know, trans-Pacific flight. Those mistake fares will happen really quickly, and you'll find those on expert forums like Flyer Talk. Flyer Talk, I would say, is very inaccessible to someone who doesn't spend a lot of time staring at airport codes. Okay, the next thing you could do, which I think is accessible to anybody who is looking, is look for flights that have an open-end destination. So you can go on flights.google.com and you can put in your destination airport. So for me, that would be PDX. Oh, yes, know your airport codes. Extremely important. So for me, my airport code is PDX. It's usually a 3-letter code, although there are some exceptions to that rule for your local airport. And then you can say, like, I want to find an international trip that is 1 week long anytime in the next 6 months. And you can look at a picture of a globe. I think I actually have a screenshot of what this looks like. And that will show you where all of kind of the cheapest deals are. And Google Flights is really excellent. The underlying mechanism is ITA Matrix software. So if you search ITA Matrix, it's also the links in the description below. This is a more nerdy, complicated way to search for flights, but it lets you do things like look for the cheapest flight anytime in the next 6 months, but between a cluster of airport codes. So, for example, I might be willing to fly out of LA, Seattle, or Portland, and I'm just trying to get to somewhere near Beijing, China. What you can do on the ground here in the US, where we have, you know, open borders between all of the states and you can just easily fly to another city, you can do it on the other end. So it is a lot cheaper quite often to take either ground transport, surface transport, or a cheap connecting regional flight in if you get over to the continent that you're trying to go to. So a great example would be like I want to fly out of Seattle and I'm trying to get to I'm trying to get to Hong Kong. Well, I can search for flying out of Seattle, flying out of Portland, flying out of SFO, because all of those are just like hour and a half like connecting flights at most on this side. And I can look into flying to Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, essentially Taiwan airport, although the Taiwan airport is often pretty expensive, but looking at anywhere in that region, because those little hops are often $70, $80 or something like that. The downside of doing this, the downside of booking this large international trip, if you book those start and end points separately, you might not always be able to get those rebooked if your flight runs late. So if you are doing that, Europe is a great example. Quite often I'll fly into Paris instead of flying into London, and then I'll just take a $20 flight over, or I'll take the Eurostar across, or a bus if I want to be really cheap. That in that case, I will always make sure that I've given myself generous time in the airport, because you need to make sure that you have time to clear customs. If it's an international flight, you have time for some flight delays. If you haven't been in the airport, that you have time to get between terminals. So that is one of the things where, like, if you've never flown out of LAX, the Los Angeles airport, and you do not realize that they have 3 different international terminals, and you have to take a actual bus that goes across the tarmac to get between them, you may not realize how much the time between terminals is. So you need to give yourself ample time. And that is one of the downsides. Usually the airlines will do a better job if they are doing your whole itinerary. They will give you enough time for the connecting flights. Anyway, that was a lot of information about how to find cheap flights. So here's the overview. Scott's cheap flights. Escape flights as well is not quite as good, but it has more domestic things. Scott's cheap flights only focuses on cheap international. I've gotten tons of cheap international deals from there before. Then find out who your regional provider is. If you live near a hub, it's whatever airlines are the hub. So we are a hub for Alaska. We are a secondary hub for a couple other airlines. Sign up for the fare deal alerts from those airlines. I know that it sucks to get more emails in your inbox, but you're going to find a lot more information. You're going to find a lot more relevant, fast information if you signed up for those individual airlines flight alerts, because they're going to tell you things like, oh, we have a deal alert for blah, 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 and they'll tailor it to your airports. So make sure to be signed up for whatever local airlines you have. Okay. We've covered a lot deep into the airlines. I do want to acknowledge that, like, one of the main things that I do is that I try to do a lot of train travel, and train travel can be, a lot more expensive, and that is largely because there are usually deeper discounts and fares for plane travel than there are for train travel, especially if you are traveling in rich countries. So Western Europe train fares are outrageously expensive, as are North American train fares are outrageously expensive. Trains and buses and surface transport is really, really cheap in most of Eastern Europe, most of China, most of South America, most of Africa. Africa doesn't have many trains, but it has very cheap buses. So, when you're strategizing about how to do surface transport, you have to make your decision about if you're willing to do any flights, because sometimes you can take flights to get yourself to a cheaper destination for surface transport. I like to do really, really, really long train trips. So I've gone from Dublin, Ireland to Shanghai, China by train, which was through 13 countries. And I took my flights into Dublin, went to a conference, then it was all trains and ferries and a couple buses through Eastern Europe due to the Russian border, all through, all through Europe and Asia. And then I took flights also acquired on points back from Shanghai, China, with a stopover in Seoul back to the United States. And that was I used points and miles, but most of the ground transport was things that I paid for in cash, except we will get to how I was able to use Chase's pay yourself back feature to cash out a bunch of it. Aaron says, we're not going to talk about the time we almost missed a flight because we didn't plan for how long it was going to take to get through LAX. That's not entirely true. We planned for how long it was going to take to get through LAX, but we were very determined to go to the better airport lounge we had access to. So we took a bus to a different terminal so that we could go get free food because we had a very long layover. And then we didn't realize we couldn't go back with the same bus. And we ended up having to leave security, and it's fine. We were not the last people on the flight, but we were running. Also, I had settled in so much and we had done a lot of work in the airport lounge that I just forgot when we had to go back through security. I had water in my water bottle, and then I had to chug my water bottle while we were racing for the airplane. Anyway, yeah. I've also almost missed a flight, not realizing, oh, okay. One last thing about cheap planes. So, cheap planes without points and miles, before we dive into the points and miles thing, which I know is probably what people are most interested in. But I do want to emphasize that, sometimes points are not going to make the most sense. Sometimes getting a cheap flight makes a lot more sense than playing the points and miles games, especially if you're not someone that cares a ton about what the destinations are. I am trying to ride trains in every single country that has a heavy rail transit system. That is a pretty audacious goal, just time-wise. And so pretty much if I see a fare deal come up to a country that I haven't been to before, I'm going to take it. And as long as I can make it work in my schedule and my budget. And that is I think it's important to recognize the differences and values, because just because a flight is free, there's still a cost to it. There's still the time that you have to take into credit hacking. You're always going to have to pay some level of taxes and fees for the award ticket. And additionally, if you use those points on that flight, and that flight was let's say you use 15,000 Alaska points on a flight to San Francisco, but you could have bought that flight in the Alaska fare deal for $49, you are giving yourself an extremely low valuation for those points. 15,000 Alaska points, by contrast, can buy you a round trip domestic ticket across the U.S. that could cost you $600. So you've got to recognize that just because it's free with the credit miles, it doesn't mean it's always a good value. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's actually a good value comparatively. Pixie Dust says the Palm Springs airport is the best, aside from the weather. Yeah, Aaron has spent a lot of time in the Palm Springs airport. Pixie Dust, you missed the donut, so you're just going to have to wait till I eat it. It's strawberry shortcake. I can't be that mean. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about finding cheap flights? Because I feel like I can answer that decently. Also, look into low-cost airlines. Something to know about flight deals. One, flights are very bad for the environment, and there are very significant carbon costs to them. So if you are getting a very cheap fare deal, you need to recognize that you are still having a carbon impact on the world. All airlines essentially do carbon offsets for your flights. A lot of people don't realize that, but because of EU regulations, pretty much any airline that flies through the EU does carbon offsets for the flights for you individually. Whether or not carbon offsets are actually an effective method is a different debate. The important thing to realize is that those highly cheap, like, flights may not be around forever because of the environmental impacts of them. So you need to make that decision about whether or not you are willing to do that. Sometimes there are time savings involved, right? Like, you can usually take a bus between those destinations for a lot less than whatever even the cheapest discount airline is. But the question is, are you willing to spend the 18 hours on a bus through Eastern Europe when you could take a 45-minute, $25 flight? The best airport is at Salt Lake City Airport. It has fantastic views all around. The Minneapolis one has the best sink drains that look like a plane. I don't think I've ever noticed that at the Minneapolis airport. Salt Lake City has fantastic views. Salt Lake City actually also has very good international deals, I think largely because of the number of people that fly out of SLC for missions. So it actually has a lot of international deals. So if you're able to do connecting flights to SLC, it can be really great. Something that blows my mind, though, is that they still have smoking rooms in the Salt Lake City airport, which is I have not seen in any other domestic airports in the U.S. Like, they're still common in most, like, Middle Eastern airports, I would say, like a little, like, smoking room inside the airport. But, yeah, only Salt Lake City has it. Okay. Yeah, I'm not good at suspense, sorry. All right. Now, points and miles. How to play this game. Once again, I'm going to emphasize that points and miles, you can only really play this game effectively if, one, you know that you can handle having credit cards and paying them off every month. If you are currently carrying a consumer debt balance, pay that off before you get into the credit card points and miles. There are ways to earn credit card points and miles that are not, or like airline points and miles that are not just credit cards. But if you are looking to get the big sign-up bonuses and get a bunch of free international flights or free hotel nights, then you really need to be willing to play the credit card game. So make sure that you are comfortable handling the credit card game. Next is to know your credit score and credit history. So in the United States, you are entitled to one free credit report from each of the 3 bureaus each year. You need to go to annualcreditreport.com to find that out. Annualcreditreport.com is the only place that you can get it from. And right now, because of COVID, you can actually get a free credit report every month from every bureau instead of every year. So you can pretty much almost guaranteed check it unless you have checked it recently. If you haven't checked your credit report on freecreditreport.com before, it's going to ask you trick questions. So it'll be like, you know, what year did you get? We see that you had a mortgage that you signed up for in 1990 and you were born in 1992. One of those answers will be none of the above. And if that is the correct answer for it, choose it. I think a lot of people get thrown off when they try to do it. You may not have a credit report on there, or you might have trouble accessing it. Get a hold. Make sure that you have information and access to your credit history before you start down the journey of credit card hacking. And that is because this whole system is designed to get you to get credit cards. The whole points and miles system is designed to get you to get credit cards. And therefore, the credit score, which is a score of how good you are to pay back debt, is incredibly important, as is your credit history. And if you want to win at this game, as opposed to be taken for a ride by the credit card companies at this game, you need to have as much information as possible about your own credit history and credit score in order to do it. So, primary way that you earn points for travel and miles is through the sign-up bonuses on cards. I think a lot of people that think that you just get a card and you spend on it and then it gives you points for travel. That is true to some extent, but the bulk of the miles that people earn, points that people earn, happens during the sign-up bonuses. And the sign-up bonuses are not always the same, and they are not universally available to everyone. So there are a couple things you need to know. You need to know your credit score. So your credit score, you actually have a bunch of different credit scores. 3 total. roughly, but there's actually a couple different models out there. This is all an algorithm that they use to determine how creditworthy you are. Generally, on all of the models, if your credit score is above a 750, it is considered excellent. And if it is excellent, you will likely be able to get out most of the cards. So first of all, you need to be able to qualify for the cards. If you have no credit history and you do not currently have a credit score, or you have a low credit score, then what you can do is you can sign up for a credit builder card if you want to start playing this game. I have put a link down in the description below for Chime. And if you sign up for Chime, you get $75 and I get $75. So it is a referral link, but Chime has one of the easiest to understand credit builder cards. What credit builder cards do is that they lock up a small amount of money. You use that card responsibly for 2 to 6 months to a year. And, you know, charge on it, pay it off every month. And then they give you back that $100 or $200 that you put in a locked account. And all the meanwhile, they are reporting that history to the credit bureaus, and that ups your credit score. So first of all, make sure that you have a good credit score. If you have a good credit score and you're thinking about getting into the points and miles game, but you simultaneously are considering doing other things you might need a good credit score for, it might not be the right time to do it. Because you will take a small hit, a ding to your credit score for 90 days, roughly. That is how long a ding lasts, of about 15 points every time you sign up for a card or apply for a card, because it is considered a new inquiry. And that is because your credit score is the credit card companies trying to figure out if you are a good risk. And if you're out there applying for a bunch of cards, they start to get nervous that you need to borrow a bunch of money and you might not pay it back. So they put a temporary ding on your credit score. I am always applying for cards, and I still always have a credit score above 800. So, it is a thing that you can build a positive history. Also, there's a lot of myths out there about how you need to borrow money for a car or, whatever in order to improve your credit score. What I'm going to say is I've only ever had credit cards, and I've only ever paid them off on time every single month. I've never had any other kind of loan on my credit score, and I still have what is considered to be the highest echelon of credit score on all of the systems. So ding is the technical term, believe it or not. So hit is greater than 15 points, and ding is a small, usually 5 to 15 point. And it will go down and then it will recover. Okay. So first of all, get your credit score in order. Website that I like, in addition to getting your actual credit report, you can also get your credit scores. So there are different kinds of credit scores out there, and there are quite a lot of cards that now are giving you free credit scores, even if you are not a member. So I linked down below. American Express is doing a free credit score. They do Vantage 3.0, which is one of the different scales for credit measurement. Chase also does a free credit score, as does Discover. So down below, even if you are not a card holder with those banking institutions, they will give you a free credit score. And those are your real credit scores. Commonly referred to as a FICO score. However, FICO is just actually one of the models. That stands for Fair Isaac Corporation. I don't know what the O stands for. I think that's part of the corporation. Anyway, FICO is just one of the models for credit scores. Just generally know that on almost all of them, if you're over 750, you're considered in the best range for credit scores, and you'll qualify for most of the cards. Another place that you can go to get what is called your FACO score, which is a attempt to figure out what your credit score is, therefore a fake FICO score, because all those scores are based on proprietary algorithms. So what websites that try to help you make sense of your confusing to read credit reports and credit scores do is they try to backwards engineer those credit score algorithms, and then they provide you with a FACO score. So the one that I use most often is called Credit Karma. It's totally free. I really like Credit Karma. There's also Credit Sesame. There's a couple other different websites. And they will help you wrap your head, I think, better around what your credit score is, but they will also give you this very crucial piece of information that you need to know: what cards you signed up for and what date your line of credit was open. So every time you open a new credit card, that is opening a new line of credit on your credit report, and they will have an age of credit. And this becomes very important as you start searching for credit cards to sign up for. So the credit card sign up bonuses change all of the time, but you need to start very intentionally if you do this as a hobby. You need to know how many cards you have opened in the past 24 months. So past 2 years, any cards that you have opened, any new lines of credit that you have opened with any institution. And it's best to know which cards you have out and what your total credit lines are. So how much they actually have available. And a lot of people will be like, I have one credit card and it's like, I don't know, $1,000 or something. And that's fine. Just know when you opened it, what year. This becomes really, really important. So, second thing you need to know is what you want to get out of travel hacking. So for me, the thing I want are international flights. And I, in particular, want international flights everywhere. And that does make it very easy. I have done the points and miles in order to get the extremely fancy first class international flights, but I actually prefer to go for more economy flights as opposed to fancy international lay down flights. I've done it. It's great. It was a cool experience. However, I prefer to get for those international ones. But I know what destinations I'm interested in soon. So by soon, I say in the next 3 to 24 months, I would say. That's a good range. Then I figure out what the best cards are that are transfer partners to the airlines that fly there. So here is a great example. I want to go to Hong Kong in November 2022. Hong Kong international flights from the West Coast, there is a lot of ways to get there. However, what is helpful for me is that I know that United flies to a lot of Asian cities, and United has its own co-branded credit cards. So airlines will either be a transfer partner from one of the flexible rewards programs. The flexible rewards programs are Chase Ultimate Rewards, Avios Points, which are also British Airways, Citi Thank You Points, Amex Membership Rewards, Marriott Points, believe it or not, are actually flexible points, and then Capital One Miles. So things that usually have the name of a credit card in front of them are considered flexible point systems, and then things that have the name of the airline in front of them or the hotel chain, with the exception of Marriott Points, and with the exception of Avios Points, which is British Airways, usually are if they have the name of the airline or the hotel in front of them, those are considered co-branded points, and they are linked to that individual airline. That doesn't mean you have to fly on that airline. I'm just realizing how complicated this is as I want to explain this to people. So know where you want to go. Figure out where you want to go, then backwards engineer what card to sign up for based on which airlines fly there. So I have this map, I think one of the maps that's showing up that shows the One World partners. So there's different alliances for all of the different airlines. Knowing what alliance the airlines are in is really important. The big airline alliances are One World, SkyTeam. Why am I blanking on the other one? One World, Star Alliance. And here is why it is important to know. So, for example, let's say you want to fly to Southern you want to fly to West Africa. There are only so many airlines that have regular service to Western Africa. There are even less airlines that have regular service to Western Africa that additionally are members of alliances that have travel sign-up bonuses. So let's say that you do want to go to Nairobi, for example. You know you want to go to Nairobi. You like, this is a goal for you. You would like to take one other person. What you can do is figure out what airlines fly to Nairobi. For example, I know that United has a lot of regular flights from where I'm at to Nairobi, from the West Coast, continental United States to Nairobi. Most of them go through Denmark. Then the next thing you want to do is look up a redemption chart. This is all before you apply for a credit card. I know it can seem really challenging, but all before you apply for a credit card, you want to find out how many points it will take you in order to fly to that country or that location. In my case, let's say I want to fly to Kenya from the West Coast US. I know that United flights have a redemption value of, I can fly on United through their partner KLM through Amsterdam, which is the KLM. Through their partnership, I can fly into Nairobi, and it is going to cost me 50,000 miles. How do I know, which are mileage plus miles is the United miles. How do I know what that is? You search for the airline's redemption chart. Most of the airlines do have a redemption chart for their type of miles, but not every airline does. Some of them have switched to flexible valuation, but most of them will have what is called off-peak and peak, and it will be between regions. So it will be like between North America and between Southeast Asia, between North America and Europe, and then they'll have peak and off-peak. They will define what is peak and off-peak. Not all the airlines have blackout dates, but most do have blackout dates where you're not able to take award flights, like usually between Christmas and New Year's, and then sometimes like the peak season for travel in the Northern Hemisphere during the summer. Those are like they'll usually be like a 2-week period, and then sometimes high holidays, like you'll see during Chinese New Year, is usually a blackout date to fly to Asia. Okay. Where are we at? Do we understand what a redemption chart is? How do we find a redemption chart? The other thing too is that the redemption charts are, they will tell you how much it is for a business class and a economy and then a first class ticket. A lot of the airlines will not have first class on a lot of routes, and so business class is the best you can do. That is an important thing to know because I think some people get anchored on that first class, not realizing that there is no first class service available on the flights that they're doing. All right, how are we feeling about redemption chart? Is everybody just very stressed out? I feel like I've already covered a lot, and everybody's like, you still haven't talked about how to sign up for the cards. Okay. I'm going to assume that you understand what a redemption chart is. So, you look up the redemption chart, you figure out that it's going to cost you about 50,000 miles. You would, and then you look for cards that are going to get you the value in those miles. Usually, there are two options. There are these flexible travel cards that, like the Citi Thank You, the Chase Ultimate Rewards, and then there are the co-branded cards. Then you look at what sign-up bonuses are available to you. If you want to figure out if it's likely you'll get approved for a card, I once again will recommend, I get no kickbacks from this, Credit Karma has a tool that will tell you what your approval likelihood is for different kinds of cards. And that can be very helpful if you're kind of on the cusp of having like the highest end credit score and you want to figure out if you could actually even qualify for a card. Now, if you are going for, if you know that you are likely to want to fly United, or you know that you want to fly on Star Alliance because they're a Croatia Airlines, and you're going to fly into Croatia. This is particularly true if you're looking for small national airlines because you want to fly into an area where most of those things are only operated by whatever the national airlines are. In that case, you either want to look at the sign-up bonus for the co-branded card. So for United, that would be the United Mileage Plus card that is done with Chase. Or you want to look into one of these flexible travel cards. When you are looking into the flexible travel cards, it is important to understand what the transfer relationship is. So what you can do is look up transfer partners and then the name of the airline that you want to fly on. So let's say that you want to fly on, trying to think of a Chase travel partner, really struggling right now. Okay, you want to fly on Korean Air, and you are looking through the Chase portal. Korean Air is a Chase one-to-one travel partner. That means one of your Chase travel points will be equivalent to 1 Korean Air miles. So then what you need to do is go look at the Korean Air redemption chart and make sure that you would have enough miles if you signed up for a Chase card. Not all airlines or hotels are a one-to-one travel partner with the actual airline, with all of the things. Some of them will be a 5-to-1 travel partner. So you need to make sure that the transfer relationship is 1-to-1, or at the very least is beneficial to you. What about United? I saw United. I think you were just trying to provide a random airline. Chase Ultimate Rewards, I do not believe actually is a travel partner with United, but I can't remember. But they have their own card. So then you want to start signing up for cards. We have finally gotten to the signing up for cards point. So once you have figured out where you want to go, you've figured out what airlines fly to that place, you've looked up the redemption chart for that, then that you figured out what cards are good options for signing up for that. Then what you need to do is find the best sign-up deals for those cards. So the sign-up deals are incredibly important because you need to make sure that you are getting the most sign-up possible bonuses for your airline cards that you can. And there is a specific order that you should apply for cards in if you want to start doing this as a hobby. So usually, to get a sign-up bonus for a card, you will need to spend a certain amount on the card within the first 3 months of opening the card. Sometimes it's 6 months. It's usually 3 months. And that is not just from getting the card in the mail. That is from the date of application for the card. So if you apply for a card on January 1st and the card doesn't come in the mail till January 15th, you still need to spend the certain amount on the card by the last day of March, because it doesn't matter when the card comes. It's based on 90 days from date of approval for the card, and if you are new to this, you will often get instantly approved. So see how much the sign-up bonuses are. One excellent place to check to see if what you are being offered is actually a good deal is something I linked down below. It is the credit cards rewards spreadsheet that shows what the best historical offer and the current offer is for different cards. And it is a very long crowdsourced Google sheet. It's very helpful. It comes from the Reddit R churning subreddit, which churning is what is the practice of taking out a bunch of cards and closing them in order to get into travel hacking. Because I do not spend a lot of money, my average spending is around $1,200 a month, including my health insurance and my rent, although it can be higher. I only do one sign up bonus at a time. If you run a lot of expenses, like if you have a much higher expenses, it's possible that you would be able to do more sign up bonuses at a time, but I recommend doing one at a time when you start up. And that is because if you miss that minimum spend, that sign up spend that you need to do, which is quite often $3,000 in 3 months by $1 or a day, you are not going to get those sign up miles. So the next thing to think about when you do the sign up bonuses is when you are choosing which cards to sign up for, is if you are looking in to sign up for a Chase card, which Chase is the biggest purveyor of a lot of these cards, they have a rule called 524. You cannot have signed up for more and opened more than 5 cards in the past 24 months. And that's not just Chase cards. That is any cards. So that might sound like a lot to some people. For other people, you might be like, oh my gosh, I've got to figure it out. This includes cards that you've been signed on as a authorized user on. So if you are in the situation of never having tried to do travel hacking before and you have signed up for 0 cards within the past 24 months, the first thing you should do is look at the Chase cards and see if there are any that you want, because it's usually best to make that one of the first travel rewards cards that you sign up for. So for Chase Ultimate Rewards are usually some of the most attractive ones out there. The downside with the Chase Ultimate Rewards cards are most of them do not waive the annual fee for the first year. So most of these travel rewards cards will waive the fee for the first year, and then you can do what's called a product change and downgrade the card to a no-fee card while keeping the line of credit open, which is how I've ended up with so many credit cards that I barely use, because I want to keep those lines of credit open so they continue to age. I don't charge money on them other than to keep them active and pay it off immediately. But I have a bunch of cards that used to have an annual fee, then I downgraded before the annual fee hit the first year. The downside of the Chase Ultimate Rewards cards is that a lot of them do not have no annual fee the first year. The one that I use and I hang on to has an extremely high annual fee. However, I get $300 back of that in travel reimbursement each year. And for me, it's a $450 annual fee and I get $300 back in travel reimbursement, but I get other perks with the card that I actually have kept track of how much I've gotten in benefits from it, and like free airline access and free food at airports and everything. Free TSA pre-check, that it ends up washing out every year with things I would have bought anyway. And I like to keep it open because I enjoy the benefits that card gives me. So what a lot of people will do is sign up for whatever the highest sign-up bonus available to them at the time that they start doing this is with Chase first. Next thing you should do is decide if you want the Southwest Companion Fare. Southwest has a card that if you are someone that flies too frequently or lives in a Southwest Airlines service location, which means that most likely that you live in the southern and western United States, and you fly a lot domestically to other airports that Southwest serves, and you fly with someone else on a frequent basis, you can get what's called the Southwest Companion Fare. And the Southwest Companion Fare lets you take another person with you for free on Southwest Airlines. However, that card is issued and you need to apply for it early in the process of applying for cards, simply because you will not get approved in the future if you have applied for more than 5 cards in the past 24 months. Now, I recommend one sign-up bonus at a time. So usually, for most people, that will end up being a Chase card. It could be Chase Ultimate Rewards. It could be the Chase Mileage Plus card. It could be a Delta, Amex, any of those things. I usually recommend not signing up for an Amex until later, simply because Amex is a little bit more annoying, but Chase is very strict. And the thing is that Chase can get angry at you and decide you can never apply for a Chase card again. And so you really want to do it early in the process and continue a good relationship with them if you want to get into this as a hobby. Now, next thing, make sure you do not miss those points, that initial spending by a day or a dollar. So keep very, very good track of how much you have spent on the card thus far. I will say some of the cards will show you how close you are, but most of them will not, and that means that you need to keep good track of your expenses. If you're wondering, I used to constantly wonder, how am I possibly going to hit a $3,000 minimum spend on a card in 3 months? How am I going to do this? Here's the ways to hit it. 1, plan for large expenses. So if you have a lot of large expenses that you can put on a credit card coming up, like paying your taxes, for example, you're doing renovation, you are paying for college tuition or school fees, anything that you can put on a credit card, you can plan your sign up around when those purchases are happening. Another thing you can do is you can, if you go out for a big meal with friends, I mean, it's a novel concept these days, but you can offer to be the one to put it all on your card and then have friends repay you. That is another way to do it. There is this thing called manufactured spending. I'm going to stay far away from the manufactured spending thing. It is too close to kind of money laundering. It is technically legal, everything that people do in manufactured spending. I don't really recommend that, but one of the more legal ways to do it is if you are someone that knows you are going to be purchasing something from a certain retailer, like you spend $500 a year at Amazon, no judgment, I guess, then you can do something like buy an Amazon gift card on that card that will count as a purchase and then slowly spend down that Amazon gift card. Last but not least is paying things that you may have to pay a small fee in order to pay them on your credit card, but you're doing it to hit a minimum spend. So for me, this was rent. I would pay my rent using a credit card, either to my roommate using Venmo, and you Venmo or Cash App. You do have to pay an extra fee. It's like 1 to 3% depending on it, in order to pay another person on the app. But for me, the extra $30 a month that I had to pay in fees was well worth the $20,000 of international plane tickets I was getting per year. There's also services you can use like plastic.com, spelled with a Q, that will allow you to pay things like your student loans, your mortgage, and your rent using a third party, and they will charge you a small fee, but that will help you hit the minimum spend. For me, that was my rent. That was a large portion of my $1,200 expenses. So Aaron says, I've been paying my architect on a credit card for the last few months. Aaron's actually been paying the architect on one of my credit cards that I had to hit a minimum spend on. So thank you very much. That is another thing. If you have someone that you do trust to pay you back that has large expenses and they aren't into the credit card hacking hobby for a reason, but you do trust them to pay it back, one thing you can offer to do is pay their expenses and have them then pay you offline. That is technically manufactured spending, but it is well within legality. One thing I do not recommend, and that will bite you in the butt, is placing large purchases and then getting the returns, because if those returns come deducted off of your card before that minimum spend period, you will lose out on both the minimum spend and the points, and you might get in trouble with the credit card company. So do not do large purchases and then get a return, because that will not count to hit the minimum spend. Does anybody have any questions? So a lot of the more high-end cards have higher than $3,000 in 3 months, which for me was always like, oh, even hard enough to do. The next line up is usually $5,000 in 3 months. And another way that you can do that is if you have large purchases that you know are coming up, sign up for a new card right before that. So if you're going to do something like get a laptop, but you know you can pay for it in cash, do not finance a purchase on a travel rewards credit card. If you need to use a credit card to finance a large purchase where you're not going to be able to pay it off, all off by the next month. Get a low or no interest credit card. All of these travel and rewards credit cards have very, very high interest rates, so they are not a good option for financing. You should not care at all about the APR or the interest rate if you're doing travel hacking, and that is quite simply because you should be paying it off every single month. So that is the other thing. Make sure you immediately set up auto pay as soon as you get it. Make sure that you are balancing your budget and you are not spending money that you do not have, because you don't want to be paying a huge APR on these things. Okay. That's how you hit the minimum spend. Chase cards first. I linked below in the description a good flow chart for kind of approaching these. I do want to recommend right now Chase Sapphire Rewards is doing Chase Sapphire card is Chase Sapphire Preferred, not Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is the more expensive card. Chase Sapphire Preferred is running a 100,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards sign-up bonus right now. I think it's going to go through July. I would highly recommend checking that one out if you are under the 524 limit, meaning you have not opened 5 cards in the past 24 months across all things, and you have a good credit score. I would highly recommend checking that out. 100,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points are great. They have tons of transfer partners. And then in addition, Chase Ultimate Rewards, you can use to book travel through their Chase portal, and you'll get extra bonus points. So on my big trip across Europe, I think I have a map of it that Erin might be able to put up on the screen that I did by train from Dublin to Shanghai, China. While I flew in and out on points that were not Chase Ultimate Rewards points, in between, I took a lot of trains that were travel deals, but I was able to pay myself back with the Chase Ultimate Rewards using the Chase Pay Yourself Back feature. And because I had spent I think I spent over $1,000 on train tickets across everything, mainly the Trans-Siberian, which is 8 days long, is almost $700 for foreigners. That train ticket I was able to almost completely offset by doing Chase Pay Yourself Back. I don't tend to go for a lot of hotel points because I prefer to stay in cheap hostels because that's where the interesting people are, and I'm able to do that. But I am able to sometimes book hostels through the Chase Ultimate Rewards portal. So even though I don't do the hotel co-branded credit cards, I can go into the Chase Ultimate Rewards portal and find a $30 a night hotel hostel thing and actually book it through there and get a very good value. Is Chase Freedom Unlimited different than Chase Freedom? I already have regular Freedom. Chase Freedom Unlimited and Chase Freedom are slightly different. Chase Sapphire, Chase Freedom are different families under Chase. And then there's all the other Chase cards. Chase Freedom is a cashback card. So that is just good if you want to kind of just put your regular expenses on it and then get some cash back for groceries or gas or whatever. Chase Freedom Unlimited and Chase Freedom are different. And then the Chase Ultimate Rewards is more focused on travel, and those are more prestige cards. And those are under the Chase Sapphire world. And the Chase Sapphire world is excellent. And the Chase Sapphire world is the one that has the really big sign-up bonus right now. Rachel asked, what is the Chase Pay Yourself Back feature? Excellent question. So there's a couple different of these flexible points cards where you can pay yourself back. Chase is not the only one. There's also Capital One miles, which is another flexible thing. And I think Capital One miles are some of the best for kind of pay yourself back. Pay yourself back is where you purchase already on the card and then you actually go into the Ultimate Rewards portal, and then based on the number of points you have and based on the merchant category for the card. So if you buy a flight, it's in the merchant category of travel. If you buy a hotel, it's in the merchant category of travel. If you buy something from a restaurant, it's under the restaurant merchant category. Those are hard coded into the credit card processing. What the Pay Yourself Back feature does is for certain kinds of purchases, it will let you exchange Ultimate Rewards points. So deduct those from your balance and actually use those to just get a statement credit. So if you, for example, spent $200 on travel and you had like, how much would it be right now? I think it would be 30,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points. That is equivalent to $200 of travel. So you would go apply your $30,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points inside the Chase portal to your purchase and say that you want to pay yourself back, and then you'd get a $200 statement credit on there. Does that make sense? And it's great because the point valuation for these different programs will vary based on the type of merchant category. And the reason I like Chase Ultimate Rewards points is that they have a higher valuation, meaning you have to use less Chase Ultimate Rewards points for a higher dollar value if it's in a travel category. So it's good for hostels and stuff. Silly question. No such thing. If you haven't been able to figure out, this is a very complicated hobby. I can have multiple active credit cards that give me miles for the same mileage account. I already have the Alaska card. Yes, very, very much you can. So you can have, it used to be that we would stack Alaska cards. Alaska has changed who they use now. But I opened 3 Alaska cards. It used to be that you could essentially every 90 days sign up for a new Alaska card and still earn the initial 50,000 Alaska miles. And I had a total of 3 Alaska cards back when they were through Bank of America, and was getting mileage points on all through Alaska. And I used that to fly first class from Europe through Dubai back to the United States. And that was with a nice stopover in Dubai. And that was entirely on Alaska points because they were an Emirates travel partner. And I knew that Emirates had a good first class product I wanted to try out. So yes, 100%. Martin says, I have 100K Amex MR points. Are they okay for cheap flights, or did I screw up? Chase, okay, 100K Amex points are totally fine. I'm not going to say you screwed up. What is great about Amex MR points is that every kind of points has a different sweet spot, so to say, for the type of valuation that they have. And Amex points are actually, membership rewards points are actually a very good sweet spot for business class rewards. So if you're interested in business class rewards, you can actually use Amex membership reward points for that. However, they do work for economy rewards. What's just nice about the business class rewards is that they tend to have a pretty low valuation that you can use them for. But yeah, they're fine for flights. Last thing I do want to mention is that taxes and fees are a thing you are going to have to pay on all awards flights. So when people say they got free flights, you still do have to pay taxes and fees. On international flights or on domestic flights in the US, it's usually $6 is the fees you might pay, up to $15. Things to look out for when you are doing international flights. In Europe, if you're flying through Heathrow Airport, you are going to have to pay a mileage surcharge anytime you fly through the Heathrow Airport. So most people just avoid the UK for awards flights because you will pay hundreds of dollars of taxes and fees, even often for economy tickets if you fly through London, which is one of the reasons that when I do awards tickets, quite often I fly into other nearby airports. And if you do want to fly into the UK and you're able to fly into somewhere else other than Heathrow, one of the other London airports, you will pay lower. Heathrow has the highest ones for reasons I don't fully understand, but have to do with the British government. So mildly inscrutable. You will also pay higher taxes and fees on first class flights. So, for example, on the way back from Shanghai via Seoul, I had first class Korean airline flight, which, we have a picture of that too, if you want to see. This one was pretty cool. This was like the last time I was like, oh yeah, I just wanted to see what it would be like to fly on one of these. And I did this using Chase Ultimate Rewards points that I then transferred to Korean Airlines. And through that, I got Chase Ultimate Rewards points that allowed me to get first class from Shanghai to Seoul, stop over in Seoul for free, and then I was able to fly back to the US with a lie-down bed, fully catered meal. They gave me noise-canceling headphones for the plane. They gave me my own pajamas and toiletry kit and white glove service and laid out a tablecloth for me and everything. It was a fun experience. I don't really feel from an environmental perspective that any one person should be allowed to have that much environmental impact in the air, but darn, it was fun. And that one was I had started with an explanation that wasn't just talking about doing that flight, but I was going to talk about the advantages of it. Nope, it's gone. I'm sorry. Later I'll be able to rewatch this live stream and I'll be able to see where I was going with that statement. Martin says, so far I've enjoyed more hotels with MR points. Love the cat stickers. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you love the cat stickers. I mean, I definitely do think that hotels are more like definitely an area that I know a lot less about. When I have been doing hotel points, it's mainly been either through the paying myself back features because I tend to stay at really cheap hotels, or it's been staying on actual earned points. So because Aaron travels for work in non-COVID times constantly, we had a lot of hotels.com points that I got to glom onto. I say we. I didn't really have them. I was able to glom onto the hotels.com points, but those were earned. Those were not through the actual rewards. So it isn't a thing I tend to focus on just because I don't really like paying for hotels, and I tend to prefer being able to just pay myself back for Airbnbs, hostels, whatever it might be, rather than staying at really name brand hotels. But it has been cool when I've been able to. Okay. Pixie Dust says, I just got $200 after putting plane tickets on a new card. Kind of low rewards, but easy. Hey, it's totally, I mean, that's the thing. You have to decide what amount of effort you're willing to put into this hobby if you're interested in this hobby. Okay. Things that we've covered. 1, how to get your credit score up to snuff if you're not yet there. 2, where to find the best current sign-up bonuses when you're looking for cards, which is that spreadsheet that I mentioned, the current offers spreadsheet. 3, where to check your credit score and make sure that you do not have that you have not hit that 524 limit for the Chase cards. 4, the order to apply for cards, which is linked in the flow chart down below. That also comes from the churning subreddit, which I know it's Reddit and it has churning in the name, but I will say they're quite friendly at answering questions. I recently had a question about the order of operations, so I could maybe sign up for the Chase Sapphire card again. And then what are I think it might be time for a donut break. And then if you have questions, we'll come back because there's more. I have so much more to answer. All right. We need a donut light, but I'm going to eat the donut now. So, strawberry shortcake, vegan, old-fashioned donut. It smells so strong. Oh, it's definitely an old-fashioned. It's like way harder. It's not. I like the old-fashions because they're like kind of if a donut was sourdough, I feel like that's how they taste. It's very big though. It's kind of hard to bite into. Yeah, the inside just looks like bread. It's very crumbly on the top. It's kind of great. It's like a hard surface to it. I thought it was going to be like sickeningly sugary, but it's actually not. It has a pretty good flavor. And the bottom is just sort of like, it kind of tastes like maybe cinnamon, like cinnamon bread or something. It's very just like kind of plain bread underneath. But then the top is really rich in like flavor and texture. Now I'm gonna have crumbs all over my face. It smells like real, kind of like real strawberry. It smells like real strawberry syrup. So like when you cook down and condense strawberry and it gets very sweet. But it doesn't smell like strawberry like flavor in candy. It's good. I'm not gonna be able to finish this donut though, just because it's so dense. Oh, a donut tax is being taken. This is just like the taxes that you'll have to pay if you fly through Heathrow. All right. What questions do we have? Because I know this is a baffling hobby to people. Do we want to know what happens after you've hit that sign-up bonus? And how you actually book the tickets? Or like, what are your sinking worries about this as a hobby? So I think one of the things to bring up too is that during COVID, there are a lot of airlines. Airlines have all of those miles have like an actual cash value. And those are liabilities on their books. And one thing that they do is they devalue the points. So devaluations happen when, you know, it used to cost $40,000 to go round trip to Europe off-peak season, and now suddenly it costs 60,000 points. So that's a devaluation, right? And that is like, that is one of the reasons why you should be a little nervous, because right now airlines are desperate to get paying customers. And there are a lot of people like me. Like, I added up all of our households' points and miles that we have, and it has crossed the million mile mark between all of the points and miles that we have between just two people in the household. And there are a lot more people out that barely used their points and miles last year. And you do need to look out for devaluation. So the biggest things to note is with devaluation, the things that are most liable to devaluation are those points where you earn it on a Delta credit card or United credit card. And you earn it tied to one specific airline. And that's because if you have 100,000 SkyMiles with Delta that you earned on a Delta credit card, and Delta starts devaluing their SkyMiles program, then you're stuck. Like, you are 100% stuck with that decision if you can't find a way to use those before they devalue. Versus if you are earning on a flexible points card like Citi Thank You Points, Amex, Chase Ultimate Rewards, one of those flexible programs, they have a bunch of different transfer partners, and that means that you may luck out, and even if one program devalues, you can look into the other airlines that they transfer to, and all of them aren't going to devalue at the same time. Did I miss how to get a lie-down seat for cheap? Well, so the big thing to know is to know where you're aiming to go, and then you need to figure out where, which airlines serve that have a first-class product that you want to do. So the Korean Airlines one that I got that was a lie-down seat, that was Chase Ultimate Rewards points, and that was because they have a very good sweet spot for one-way first-class tickets from Asia back through to the United States. So what you need to do if you are looking for first-class products is you need to figure out what the sweet spots are for the areas that you want to go to. If you just want to do a first-class product and you don't actually care where you're going, which there are people like that on the internet. There are people that just do reviews of first-class products and they don't really care about the destination. It's just the airline points. Then it doesn't matter as much. Start earning those flexible flexible points, then try to find an airline that has a good award chart. If you are looking for a certain destination, I do really, really recommend the website, The Points Guy, because they have guides to how to fly first class to various destinations, to Asia, to Europe, to the Middle East, and figure out where the best sweet spots are in the awards charts. So I think we have a picture of what an actual redemption chart looks like. But what is helpful here is this is where you need to know what airlines have the product that you want. So, it might be great if Croatian Airlines serves where you're at, but if you want a lie down seat, they don't have any first class products on Croatian Airlines. So it doesn't get you any points to be going for a first class seat, because their first class seats are just slightly bigger economy seats in Croatian Airlines. So you need to know what products you're looking for. Some of the best first class products out there are Delta One, Qantas Airlines International, the Emirates, Qatar Airways, Japan Airlines, and Korean Airlines. There are sweet spots for all of those, but you need to look at one of those redemption charts. They had better be real strawberries or they'll get evicted from Oregon. Pixie Dust says, I'm always afraid of missing deadlines and getting fees, so I avoid the biggest rewards. That's fair. I would say if you're very worried about the deadlines thing, but you have the money, then one of the best things you can do is, if you know you have big purchases coming up, then you do the research in that moment, find the best card with the sign-up bonus at that time, and then try to do it with just 1 or 2 purchases. So, a great example was I had to hit a $6,000 spending limit or spending, minimum on this card. And Aaron had to pay the architects for a property. And I was able to be like, oh, with just 2 purchases, I'm going to be able to hit that minimum fee with just 2 purchases or whatever, that minimum spend. And that was a lot easier than really looking at all of the expenses to make sure that it added up to $3,000 or whatever it was. The other thing to do is to look for cards that have very low minimum spends. Usually you want some level of minimum spend, and that's for tax reasons that we don't need to get too deep into it. Essentially, if you have to spend money to get them, they're not considered taxable income. They're considered bonus points. But if you get them just for opening the card without any minimum spend whatsoever, then they can be considered taxable income. Which is why usually you want some kind of minimum spend. But when I started doing this, I went for cards where the minimum spend was spend $50 on this card. The next thing you need to keep track of is making sure that you actually do call them to do a product change on the card before that minimum fee hits, if there's been no annual fee the first year, after the second year. And, also I would say it's not a hobby for everyone. Anybody else have any other questions? How to keep track of these? How to find the best sign-up bonuses? It's very good. I don't think we have the donut review overlay, but I will say 4 out of 5 donuts rating. Pixie Dust says, if you do forget about an annual fee and get hit, usually you can call and get it waived. It really depends on your relationship and which banking institution it is. However, they do have to refund you the annual fee if you call. For those high annual fee cards, depending on the credit limit. So there's actually regulation that passed in 2018 that means that if you have a very high annual fee card relative to your credit limit on the card, then they do have to refund it if you call and ask for them to waive it within that. I will say it's not a guarantee that they will refund it though, but it's always worth trying. Oh, If you get rejected for a card, but you feel like you should qualify, you can call what's called the recon line or the reconsideration line. So whoever the card issuer is Chase. Like if Chase is it, search for Chase recon line or Bank of America recon line, and you can call the reconsideration line, and often they will tell you why it is. And sometimes it might just be that you already have multiple cards with them, and you can ask to just transfer some of your credit limit to the new card, and they'll approve you for it. Or sometimes they'll want more information or something like that. But the first rejection does not mean you've got instant rejection. Pixie Dust says if you downgrade the card to no fee. Yes, so you do have to downgrade it if you do want to get it waived, but I would also say it's not a guarantee, and it really depends on the issuer and your relationship with them. So Points Guy, who else to watch? I wouldn't really say to watch Points Guy. I would say most of this points kind of stuff, it's best to actually just look it up when you need it. Unless you're someone who really likes to nerd out about this stuff. Their blogs are not like blogs you should really follow. But the Points Guy and Million Mile Secrets are two of the ones I use most often for looking up valuations and stuff like that. But yeah, the real lesson is know where you want to go. Do the research on what airlines serve there. If you want to apply for any Chase cards, do it early in this process. Always keep track and hit those minimum spends. Make sure you cancel the cards if you need to. Don't put more on a credit card if you cannot pay it back immediately. And last but not least, if you feel like you can't hit a minimum spend, then get creative with ways to hit it and get paid back from other people, or put purchases you wouldn't normally put on a credit card. It's really the basics. I'm far more into flights than I am into hotels, so I'm not the best person to give you information on hotels, but most of the hotel information is the same as the flight information. But the difference is, instead of looking at certain airlines, what you're doing is looking at the valuations. Like, so instead of looking at redemption charts that say like between Europe and North America, what you're doing is you're looking at the category of properties. So if you're really want to get a resort hotel in Hawaii, then what you're going to need to do is look at what tier that property is. So, you know, Disney World is maybe a tier 4 and Hawaii might be a tier 5. Those type of properties are listed in a like type of tier of the properties with the hotel points program, and that will tell you how many points they are. And they also might have blackout dates or on or off peak seasons as well. And if you're into traveling without flying, then really look into those flexible points programs, Citi Thank You Points, Amex membership rewards, Capital One miles, Marriott points, which are not just hotel points, believe it or not, and Chase Ultimate Rewards. All of those are great options if you do a lot of surface travel that still falls under travel and you want to get reimbursed for things like bus tickets, train tickets, you know, anything like that. Then look into those flexible miles. All right. Well, that was a lot. I don't know how long it's been. Oh, yeah. I knew this would be a long live stream, because I have a lot of opinions. I also said I wasn't going to finish this donut, but I'm finishing the donut. Anyone else have any other questions? About travel, cheap travel? So I did a less wandering because it was scripted podcast down below. I have so many links down in the description. And if you have questions, you can always ask on the forums at ohmydollar.com. I'm happy to answer questions. And if I can't answer them, I will know where I would go to get the questions answered, and I will point you there. So Pixie Dust says, I got an Amtrak card for rewards, but probably won't use them. Is there any other use? So I used to be super into the Amtrak card, but that was actually the first rewards card I ever got in my life. But they changed issuers. Now my card is just like a regular card. And I do not know a lot about the regular Amtrak program, but I believe you can mostly only use it for Amtrak, and I would like to encourage you to use it for Amtrak because they're great. Christy says, I'm excited to start traveling again. Thanks for the stream. It's really inspiring. I'm glad to hear it. For me, travel is one of my core values, and it's also like a place that I put a lot of my time and energy into. I do spend money on travel hacking as a hobby, but because I keep some cards open that do have annual fees, and occasionally I pay fees in order to like pay my rent on it and everything. But overall, I spend around $3,000 a year out of my average annual budget of around $18,000 to $20,000 of like all my living expenses on travel. And in a non-COVID year, I usually go to around 9 countries per year. So this is something I really value. I don't spend, for me, cheap travel is about prioritizing certain kinds of experiences, and not everybody has the same interest in the same kind of experiences. If you're traveling with family, you may be less willing to sleep on a dirty hostel floor. If you're someone like me that travels alone, I actually find that I prefer to stay at cheap places that are filled with, young people that will very easily take me into their group and go out for a night or whatever. I also do a lot of surface transport because I like to go on long train trips, but I am willing to fly out of my way in order to get a cheap deal. So it's just about picking what you care about. I think it's a lot like, wedding planning, where they tell you, pick the things that you care and you want to spend a lot of money on, and then pick the things that you don't care about and either cheap out on those or don't do those at all. So like, I don't drink alcohol, I don't own a car, but I will spend a lot of money on train travel across Russia. And so it's just, for me, a matter of priorities. So I'm also excited to start traveling again. I have 2 international trips booked this year, and I am flying my first domestic trip since 2019 this week. So I'm really happy to answer any more questions people have. All right, we'll do what we always do to wrap the stream, which is, what are people most excited about this week? What are you looking forward to? I'm looking forward to getting on a plane. I'm just short of like possibly exposing myself to bad things because I want to just lick everything at the airport. I'm like so excited to go to the airport. So excited. Yes. Also, since it was my mom who asked how to get a lie-down seat for cheap, tell me where you want to go, Mom, and I will tell you what card to apply for, and we'll figure it out. Aaron's also excited to go to the airport. We're just going to be like children running around in the candy store all the way. Mandy says, last weekend I flew for the first time since 2019. I did a budget airline and it was still fantastic. Did not lick anything, though. That's good to know. I probably won't lick anything, but that being said, we both have the same credit card that gets us like up to $50 worth of food at the diner. It's like an alternative lounge essentially, but it's like a breakfast place and a bar in the Portland airport, and then we can each take a guest. So I'm pretty sure we are going to see how much we can spend in the airport on food before we even get on the plane. And we also got upgraded because unfortunately, Aaron has all of the statuses right now because they got extended through 2020, through 2021 from 2020 on almost all the airlines. But we probably, this is one of the few trips where we're going to be able to take advantage of them. So Cheryl says, I'm not excited about the airport, but I am excited about a venue change though. Yeah, Mandy, I also didn't do a lot of coverage of budget airlines. I would love to talk more in depth about like ways to plan around budget airlines. I think one of the big things people need to recognize is that there can be other externalities costs in budget airlines they might not realize. Like it might be at a farther out airport that actually takes like quite a bit longer to get to or something like that. And so it is important to go eyes wide open into budget airlines. I am very lucky in that I am a very small person. My legs actually, this is the most whining on the yacht problem ever, but on that fancy Korean Airlines thing, there was like a seat rest, and even with my legs fully extended out, I could not touch my toes, even pointed to the like seat like rest because I had so much room on my little pod. So I'm one of those people where I don't really care about the comfort of the experience, and I like to travel really light. So I don't really have a problem with budget airlines, but I'm also willing to take the chicken bus or something like that in order to, you know, get around in a lot of countries. So Cheryl says they charge for bags, etc. Yeah, that's the thing. But I almost never check a bag here in the States. You know, I almost never check a bag even on the non-budget airlines. I don't like to. So I think as long as you're going in eyes wide open about not about their bag sizes and how restricted they are and stuff like that, I think it's important. Pixie Dust says, I flew this week and I was terrified. Ah, I'm sorry. I feel like, so the flying part is not actually the like risky part as far as I understand. It's the airport that is risky with regards to COVID. I mean, there's obviously other risks, but it's the airports themselves that are actually risky. But they're not that risky if you're vaccinated and have a mask. And I am so grateful to live in the richest country in the planet that did prioritize getting vaccines out and has the money to afford them. And finally the money to help buy them for the rest of the world, so it's less scary. But I'm probably going to fly with a mask on. I'm going to go to airports with a mask on probably for the rest of time. I always wanted it to be more normalized to wear masks in like public transport and stuff in the US like it is in Asia and has been in Asia since SARS. And this is not how I wanted it to happen, but I'm happy that no one is going to look at you weird for having a mask when you're traveling and stuff like that. Yeah, I also hope I remember to pack for a flight. It'll be fine. This is the great part. We're only going down for a very short trip, so I'm just going to have a tiny bag. And if we forget anything, it's not like we're going to the desert. We are going to the desert, but we're going to a desert that has a city built on top of it. So we will be able to buy anything we need. If you forget anything, you'll be fine. As long as the thing we don't forget is all of our binders. I'm glad that you flew, and even though you were terrified, everything seems to have worked out okay. At least okay enough for you to be on this live stream. All right, I think I'm getting nacho eyes, so I believe that we are done. But thank you all for joining for an extra long live stream on this after the absolute last first Sunday. Now that we are done with Saturdays, first Sunday, and I think we'll probably stick with this time slot for a while unless it really bombs. And special edition live stream on Thursday from LA. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday this week, 8 p.m. Eastern with K Mikey M, the world's first publicly traded person. It is going to be great. Pixie Dust says, send me the Dora info. Yes, I will do that, but not in the chat. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a lovely evening. And we'll see y'all soon. Bye.